We're recording. Good
Mm.
morning. Good evening.
Ah, hello.
Hey. um,
Hi.
so my first
So,
question is actually, what should I call you today? Do you want to go by Bernhard or Barbara or Babsy for the interview,
oh,
for the purpose of the interview?
that's I don't care. I mean, I'm all these persons. Well, when you interview me as a writer or something, then maybe say Bernhard, if that's
Okay,
okay.
no, that's fine. And then I'd like to ask you about those three names, Bernhard,
Uh,
Barbara, and Babsy, um, and ask if you can tell me a little bit about what your relationship is to each of those names. That's a big question.
mm, yeah, wow, good question. Yeah, yeah. Well, I was born as Bernhard Kempen, and yeah, I grew up as a man.
Mhm.
And one day, in 2007. I had this idea of going to a party and wearing women's clothes, and this was so amazing that I realized that there's actually a different personality in me because I behave different. People were behaving different to me, and I realized, okay, that's Barbara. That's part of the other part of my personality, and Barbara is kind of there isn't much of a difference between Barbara and Babsy. Babsy is what good friends call me,
Yeah,
even good friends who meet me as a man. They
yeah.
say, "Hey, Babsy." That's yeah.
Okay. Um, and then I'm writing. You're an author and a translator of science fiction.
Mhm.
I'd like to know a little about when you started writing and why you started writing. Uh,
Why? Oh.
well, like maybe not
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
but like what drew you to start writing? Like lots of people do different things. They
Uh,
become scientists, or they become I worked in a
yeah,
bar,
yeah.
or they become like what about writing draws you to it?
Mhm. I mean, yeah, scientist is a good word because I always thought I would be a scientist, biologist, physicist, or something. But then I got interested in literature when I was 15. And then I remember that I wrote little stories when I was 10. It was watching a TV series, and I was writing my own episodes with these characters from the TV series. And when I was 15, I started kind of writing seriously stories about the meaning of life and things like that. And I just carried on writing. It was fun. It's also sometimes a kind of therapy. I realize when I have a problem and maybe I write about something totally different, but in the story I kind of have a solution, and this is also a solution for my life, for myself. Yeah, this
Yeah.
can happen,
Um,
and it's fun,
yeah.
so much fun. uh,
And then I've written you're you're an author, mostly an author and translator of science fiction. Um,
uh,
I don't know. So what draws you then to science fiction? And
well,
yeah,
I, I started reading science fiction when I was 12, 13, something. I watched Star Trek when it was in German TV, and I was totally fascinated. And this is the other side, the scientific side of me,
yeah,
which interests me in science fiction.
yeah.
And I always wanted to become a writer.
Mhm,
This is also why one of the reasons I studied literature.
mhm.
And but then I got this offer to translate novels, and it was paid well, so I did it for the money. Yeah,
When did you start translating?
that was in 1991 to three
Okay.
with 30 something. Yeah. Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about translating? You must have to have such an intimate relationship with the stories and the words of other people um,
Sure.
to translate them with like integrity and fidelity and make the book
Uh,
like to
right. Yeah.
take it. So can you tell me something a little bit about the process of translating from English into German, and then what maybe what that means for your own writing or your own story making, or like
Hmm.
something that you've maybe learned from that? Like my audience is like writers at the very beginning, so
Hmm.
yeah, something about what that has taught you about
Mm.
writing, or something about that process.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe the link between those two is something I just remembered when I was studying in England, in Norwich, comparative literature. I started writing a science fiction story, and I decided to write it in English, to try write it in English. Yeah. Then I had this first passage, and then I translated it into German, wrote on, and then translated that into English and wrote on like this. And that was a good experience because there is a little passage which is slightly different in both versions. And I realized, well, yes, you can do that. Why not? It's my decision. Huh? And yeah, that's the one point. I think I always think that a good translator has to be at least somehow an author too, a writer too. I think writers can translate, are able to translate.
Yeah.
Because yeah. And the other thing is actually, yeah, what you said. When I translate a book, I think maybe I'm one of the most intense readers of these books.
Yeah.
I know it very intimately because I actually, maybe there's some sentence where you just read and think, huh, okay, let's skip it and go on. But I have to translate this sentence too. So I really have to go into the book and see what the author actually meant. Yeah.
Can you tell me something about your career as a writer? Like I know you now as an amalgamation of everything that you have done, but yeah, can you tell me something a little bit about your career as a writer? Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, it's not really a big career. I started with these stories when I was 15. I will never publish them. And I was always writing some stuff. And yeah, the first professional things was in the 90s. Yeah, I think my first actually published story was 1994. That was this English-German story, but only in the German version. I sent it to an American magazine. They didn't want it. And then in 2002, I published my first novel, which is called Der Gourmet, The Gourmet. And it's about a guy who turns a cannibal. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the idea was to do it different, like in Silence of the Lambs, where this Hannibal Lecter is already there as a monster.
Mm-hmm.
But and I started with a quite normal guy who kind of develops, who kind of slips into that, yeah, slowly. And that was fascinating.
Yeah, that does.
Mm-hmm.
That would, in writing that, you would pose a lot of questions and answer them along with it. Like
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fascinating to kind of, I when I started writing this thing, I said no limits. Yeah, it's with a lot of sex, violence, and everything. And sometimes I was really shocked what I had written when I looked at it afterwards. This comes from my head. Oh my God!
Yeah.
But I think everybody has this. We all have this in us. Yeah, don't do it in reality, but in fantasy is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after that, I was always reading Perry Rhodan, which is a German science fiction series in little booklet form.
Mm-hmm.
Over 50 years running now. It's the largest. It's not only the largest science fiction saga, it's the largest literary project ever. It's when you count all the pages, there's nothing comparable. Yeah, and I read this since I was 12 or 13, and I actually when I was 15, I wanted to become a Perry Rhodan writer.
Yeah.
And then I got into business, and I realized, oh yeah, it's not everything great and good what's going on there. So just translate your books and get the money, and that's fine. And then suddenly I got this offer when I was about 40 to write a Perry Rhodan novel, and it's like, hey, a childhood dream suddenly comes true with 40. That was fun, yeah, and that was really fun. I really liked it. I wrote 8 of these, more than 3,000 or 4,000 books. Yeah, it's a lot of authors who work at that, and yeah, it's a different kind of. I was actually thinking, can I actually do that? And I realized, well, I can write my own stuff and I can translate books. And writing Perioden is somewhere in between, because you get a kind of 10 pages concept where it's outlined what should be in the story, and then I have to make a full novel out of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it worked perfectly.
How long are these novels?
They have 100 manuscript pages.
Mm-hmm.
Can I show you one?
Mm-hmm.
Just a second.
Yep.
This is the newest one from this week, not by me, and it's like 60 pages.
Okay.
Like this.
Oh, well, there's a lot of text that's double walled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do they come out every week, or is it?
Yeah,
Tell me a
every
little bit
week.
about Erotic. Like every week is a new novel.
Right.
Okay.
One of these. This is number 3088.
And there's been one every week since it started.
3088. Since 1961, every week. Yeah.
Okay, so you publish and translate as Bernhard, and perform and party as Barbara. Can you tell me a little bit about the distinction of these two parts of yourself? Like saying, maybe tell me a little bit about this distinction and how it kind of works for you, that you have these two different aspects of your life. Like I mean, sure, I compartmentalize my life and have different personalities that play out different parts of it. We all do. But I think you have this unique kind of experience where you have the two different presentations that you've created for yourself, and this freedom that comes with that. But then also, could you tell me a little bit about that distinction and what that means for you and for the work that comes out of those two?
Yeah. Well, the story actually starts with Bernhard doing stage things. I was starting with reading erotic stories, just reading them, and in very special clubs here in Berlin, which are very liberal, to say like that. And when I did my first reading, I had this idea of, which was kind of, I had a suit and underneath a shirt, and then I had this idea, when I read this erotic story, maybe I should take off my shirt and just put on the jacket over that. And I was thinking half an hour whether I should do it. I finally did it, and that was the first step towards not only reading these stories, but doing kind of little performances, sketches with two roles. I say, hey, what's going on with you? Oh, I don't know, something like that, And it was going into something theatrical, dramatical. I also did one show, or more or less nude, which was a fascinating experience, And then the idea of Barbara came after that, some years after that. And it was kind of like, well, I did so many things on stage, I can also try to go on stage as a woman, as a lady. Could work, could be a nice thing. But then I just realized that it's not only a role, it's actually part of me, some part that was always hidden all the time. Though in retrospect, I see that I had many traits which would count more or less as female. They're not really. It's not really what men do, what real men do. It's it's rather something that women do. So that's the two parts. And then I had this idea, well, when I have Barbara, why not go on stage with her? And then my first idea was something like, hey, when I go to a party, it's already a performance. I don't have to be, I don't need a stage for that. It's all the stage. I think the best show I did as Barbara was being Barbara. In German, ich bin dann mal Barbara. Difficult to translate. means, well, now for a change, I'm Barbara, something like that, yeah. And it starts with me coming on stage as a man, and then telling about my experiences, and then changing myself on stage within 3 minutes while a nice song is playing. And it's the moment when I put on my wig, then the view changes, then I'm a woman suddenly.
Yeah.
And then I'm Barbara and telling things, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey finding Barbara, in finding Barbara for yourself, and like you were saying, the things that you did before, you have these like feminine qualities that aren't typically men or like male or masculine, sorry, qualities, and then kind of what that process of self-discovery has been, your and what that kind of has opened up for your personality, or what you've found in your own personality, or what was hidden from you in your personality before, like the changes, or that have, like, a little bit about the journey of finding Barbara, what that's meant for you.
Yeah, well, one thing was sexuality, that I realized that I'm not really heterosexual, I'm rather bisexual. And I like having experiences on both sides. It's fun. It's and then I kind of now I'm sometimes in a situation I see what men and women do with each other, or what gay people do to each other or with each other, and I realize I'm kind of standing above that, and I look at it. Okay. So, I'm somehow outside of that. I have a different or a broader perspective on that all, and when you when I go out as Barbara for the first times, there was so much I realized about women, which wasn't clear to me. Well, when you go out on the street, everybody looks at you, and men are kind of like, huh, or something. They react. Women don't react to me like that, never, or very rarely. But and then men speaking to me, hey, want to have some fun? Let's go. Say, okay, or not. I don't know. And I realized why sometimes when I ask a woman, well, would you like to have some fun? And she like, oh, no, rather not. I say, sometimes I say something like, hey, well, when you just say no, it's okay. It was just a question. It's not like I'm forcing you or something. And because I had this experience when men want to get at me, they are really insistent. They're, hey, come on, why not? And don't be like that. I said no for 3 times. What's so difficult to understand? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand women much better now. Yeah. Even though I realize that I'm different, even in that role as Barbara, because I can always say to a guy, hey, come on, what's going on with you, with a male voice? And then usually they stop. Yeah.
That's just really, I don't really know too much what to say about that, but it's really nice to hear, well, you as Bernhard today, like a man being able to relate to that experience, because that is something women definitely deal with, and the acknowledgement that having a hard no is really not always the best way of answering that, because I always think of it as that you've got to kind of let down a man's ego really slowly so that he doesn't fall and crash and explode onto you in the meantime. And
I'm usually friendly for the first 3 times, yeah. But after that, when he still doesn't realize it, then I might get a bit clearer. Yeah.
I might rephrase that question a bit, because we talked then a little bit about Barbara and the different perspectives that you've got of the male and female realities, and the reality that you, or the perspective of the reality that you then get to see with Barbara. But back to kind of the distinction of the work that they both produce? Is there a reason why you don't write as Barbara, and that, like, you don't have stories that Barbara would write, or that those translate to performances rather than stories that, and then so Barbara kind of almost performs as herself, and the performance is herself, and Bernhard's stories are of other people and science fiction in the world format.
Right.
Is there a reason why those things don't cross over?
Don't forget that it's actually one person, yeah, Barbara Bernhard. The intellectual one is Bernhard, and Barbara is more on when she introduces herself on stage. She's like, "Well, I'm just a party girl. I don't know, understand what this guy was talking about. When you want to know about me, ask me." Yeah, and I just want to have fun. That's all. Yeah, that's more like Barbara then.
Okay.
Seemingly, she doesn't reflect so much, but of course, yeah, it's in the background.
Yeah.
I sometimes had this feeling when I was writing or translating something, and there was a difficult thing, then kind of like Barbara looked over my shoulder and said, "Oh, that's okay, do that." Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's good. Back to the naming thing that we started at the beginning. I know you as Barbsy. That's kind of, so you've got this very clear distinction between Bernhard and Barbara, or so it seems in the work, and kind of you separate yourself into the two. Is how do you see yourself as Barbsy? The amalgamation of the two, do you lose your distinction somewhere? I suppose we've kind of answered this question.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, it felt like I was separating into two personalities, Barbara and Bernhard, and well, they melted together again after some time, and then now, yeah, it started with things like I was at a party as a man, and then I sat down and put my leg over the other, and I thought, hey, that was a bit of Barbara. Yeah, it's always present. Yeah. Both are always present somehow. I mean, they are parts of my personality, and it's not a contradiction. It's I'm Gemini, and so it just looks different, but yeah, no, it fits.
And then could you tell me a little bit about what you're working on at the moment?
Some weeks ago, I published my second own novel, apart from these Perry Roden things, which is called Arcadia, or Arcadia in German. It's the start of a series of erotic science fiction novels with a heroine called Greedy, because she's quite active in certain respects. And the critical reception is very interesting so far. People like it, obviously. And I last year or this year I finished volume 2 and 3, and actually now I'm writing on volume 4 already. Kind of want to see, because at the moment I don't have any translation work, so I concentrate on writing my own stuff so that it can be published soon. I'm very excited about that.
When's the next installment of when's the next publication?
Maybe in spring.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. I mean, it's nearly ready. Yeah. I'm waiting for the illustrations for the guys who did for the first book. Yeah.
And then, do you find it easier to write, or like? Now I'm kind of going completely off script. Writing Perry Roden, these like sequences and these things, does that kind of affect the way that you write your own novels, in that in your creation of a sequence, like in creation of different volumes, rather than one own novel? Or did you always...
Yeah, well, yeah, the main difference is, of course, that the important elements of the novel have to be like in the concept. Yeah, I cannot change that. I can sometimes they land on the planet and just let them do something and return, and then it's okay. Yeah, it's just that they find this thing there. That's important. Everything else, it's up to you. So it's a mix of freedom and rules. And when I write my own stuff, well, of course, I'm generally totally free, but that's not really true. Sometimes I plan something for this novel or for some person, and then no, no, it's not like that. It's like characters turn around to me and say, no, I would never do that. Why? So I have to find a way to force him or whatever, yeah, or to do it his way, yeah, sometimes, yeah. And I make a plan, of course, but while I write, I always change the plan, how it goes on, yeah. That's when I have this freedom, I also have this, yeah, is it freedom when I have to do it differently than I planned? I don't know where it comes from. It comes from my head, but sometimes it's like the story is already there somewhere, and I have to explore it, and then I think it might go there, and actually, no, this way.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh.
And then probably you're writing your science fiction, your own novels are science fiction, but also really, really in that kind of erotic sphere. Is that have you always done written kind of in the erotic sphere, or has that come with Barbara? And kind of what exploration is that like? How does that get,
I don't know why. There was some. It was in the 90s. This first story I published called Lizards. It's also set in this greedy universe, but 100 years before, and it's about a human and a lizard falling in love and also having sex with each other. An intelligent lizard kind, yeah, species. And well, it's a bit difficult with them both because they are different. But it was really fun writing that, and I got really interested in this kind of thing. I read books by Philip José Farmer, who did in the 70s, and I think earlier also some erotic stuff. It's interesting, yeah. What I do different is I think my stuff reads funnier.
Yeah.
When I wrote that Gourmet, it's very serious stuff with all this violence and so, but there are some funny scenes in that, and I like to read that at presentations, and I realized, oh, that works much better when you have a sex scene and something goes wrong and everything is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I hope this never happens to me or something.
Yeah,
this is what the audience can relate to, or yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh shit.
Yeah, it makes something so fantastical all of a sudden really vulnerable and relatable.
Yeah, right.
You've probably done more work as a human in than most humans, like the average cis hetero man or woman in developing your own character and developing your personality and developing how you present that character to the world. Can you tell me, maybe from a writer's perspective, some like something about how you've developed that character, or some of the things that you think define that character in that development? Or if that's not the case, like, do you see yourself, or do you see that development of your personality as similar to the way that you develop a character, or is it something completely different?
Complicated question.
Yes.
Well, but I think the actual point is being honest. Maybe when you Ah, yeah, I think I learned that when I wrote the Gourmet about this guy who was doing really bad things, but then at one point I decided to use the ego perspective, writing it, the I perspective, or what do you call it in English?
Yeah, the first person perspective.
First person, right? And then I realized I had he could tell the reader what he thinks and what he, yeah, and he can be very honest because it's only a novel, yeah. He doesn't care, yeah. He just tells it to, well, he's not aware that he's the character of a novel. It's yeah. I gave him that voice, yeah, and this also kind of some. Yeah, there was another situation in my life where I realized it's better to be honest in every regard, even in relationships and sexuality. Yeah, and because people always lie when it's about that. That's and I decided, okay, I will try different. I will be honest. Like when I meet somebody, I say, yeah, I'm bisexual, and I might have fun with other people also. Is that okay with you? And when they turn off, then okay. But some people thought, oh yeah, that's fine. No? So then we had a kind of open relationship then, yeah. And it works so well. It works much better than this usual kind of relationship where you have something outside the house, and but you don't talk about it, and it's not good.
No.
It presses on you somehow, yeah.
Well, and if you're making decisions that are based on your truths, but then the other person is making decisions based on the lies that you're giving them as truths,
Yeah.
then you're really letting the other person down, because
Yeah.
the decisions that they're making are not based on reality. They're based on the reality that you're giving them, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And that can, yeah, I think that honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you cook something for me and I don't like it. And I say, oh, it's great, it's wonderful, it tastes perfect. And you cook it again and again for me. And I'm like, oh my God. And then at one point I will really hate you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it won't be about the food anymore. It'll be personal.
Yeah, but I mean, it's my fault then, yeah, because I didn't tell you at the first time that I didn't like it. Yeah.
That's true. Is there anything about yourself that you think I might have missed in this personality that is important for a portrait?
Ooh, I think we covered a lot.
Probably more than my word count.
Yeah. It was actually some questions I never heard like that before in a situation like that. And I really had to think about it. And thank you. I realized I had some realizations now, yeah, about me, about myself.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm gonna stop recording it. I mean, if so, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. It was fun.